Hey everyone, I'm Stacey Page. Welcome to Morning Vibes, where we reflect, grow, and elevate together. I am going to be joined in just a moment by Michelle Sloan with Dwell in Spirit. And today we are going to be talking about pause, P-A-U-S-E, not P-A-W-S. Both Michelle and I were talking earlier this week, and we were sharing a similar feeling. Hey.
Morning.
So I was just sharing that you and I were talking earlier this week and kind of sharing a similar feeling vibe. And then I noticed that so many people I was talking to were reflecting the exact same thing. Just this feeling of maybe being overly tired, maybe not feeling motivated, being excited when things were being cleared off their schedule, feeling like just this pause. And then I was even noticing how many people were being forced into a pause. They were either sick or injured. So that's why you and I were wrapping around this topic today.
Yeah, yeah, because it's important to identify what drains you and what energizes you, right? No longer is the more you do, right? So I know what depletes me, like large crowds, big parties, chaos. Like I feel drained where some people it feeds their soul, and we're all different.
Yeah,
But I think energy and behaviors can also drain you, right? So it's not so much about doing or being overscheduled. I don't think people realize that. But for me, it's when I'm around people who argue to argue, not to resolve. I find that incredibly
yeah,
draining.
yeah. They just want to get in that kind of, well, I always feel like people like that, they're in their resistance.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
they, as within so without, or we want to match our outer world to our inner world. So when this is happening inside and there's not a willingness to go in and look at it, they project it out, which is that it's almost an aggressive feeling, honestly, very draining. And I was also noticing, so my feeling as well was, I had two feelings.
Okay.
One, with how often we don't allow ourselves to move into the pause and the stillness because we're so programmed to get our to-do lists done, we're supposed to be doing. But what it was feeling like to me, so everybody who, like you, me, people who I'm talking to, everybody has a commonality of being a seeker, moving within, moving with their soul, moving through boundaries and stretching outside of their comfort zone. And it almost felt to me, or it does feel to me, like this is part of a pause that's
Mhm.
allowing the universe to reset, to reset and realign to these new empowered versions of ourselves that's showing up. Like that was just the feeling that I was getting about it.
Yeah, like what if everything is just guidance for your greatest yet to be, right? So if we look at that and we listen and we connect and we tune in to what's happening within us, like it's like being present in the now. It's not in the past or the future. Like what can you choose
Yeah.
now, right? If you can't switch off, you know, you need to be willing to look at that. Is that some people are also wired to be in survival mode, right?
Yeah.
And it's different when you give from purpose versus obligation, right? You get an energy when you're giving from your purpose. It gives you energy versus an obligation. That's the drain, I think.
Yeah.
But about regulating your nervous system, like it takes shifting your consciousness into the present moment, like realizing you're safe, like connecting to the strongest sense of I'm okay here and now, like allowing yourself to take a breath and knowing what your signs are when you're overdone. I think that's really important.
Yeah. 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 And again, the overdone can come from a bunch of different places, right?
Mhm.
It could be universe resetting itself. It also could be over giving because you're not giving from a place of overflow, and it's time to replenish, right? So I think there's a time that there's a reset happening.
Mhm.
There's an integration time happening often when we've just gone through a series of a big few months or big time of really growing and learning and taking in new things. Sometimes we need the pause to integrate And then
Mhm.
sometimes it's just that we are going in the wrong direction for a moment. We're on the road of, as you said, it's not aligned with our purpose. And that road is, I think, always going to force us into a pause as a chance to redirect, like
Right.
to move in and say, okay, what's happening, and redirect, which really just takes awareness, right? Like
Absolutely.
being aware and being willing to sit for a moment and move within and find out what you need.
Yeah. I mean, I listen to my clients' words. Like if they're saying, I'm so stressed, I feel so angry, I can't stop thinking, I'm just looping in a negative space. Like those are signs of being overdone.
Yeah.
Like you're giving from running on empty, not overflow, right?
Yeah.
Like it's about pouring in to yourselves, but or you're pouring, right, constantly giving, but never filling your own cup. Like people like to say that term a lot. But that's when you can be serving from the depletion and not abundance, which can create the resentment, the fear, the anxiety,
Absolutely.
right? And so it's identifying like, I'm feeling this. Like first, it's really just about what am I feeling? Just stopping and taking a
Yeah.
moment. I think it can like just be that simple just to connect. I mean, obviously there's many, many other exercises, but just starting at that starting point.
Well, I tell you, that is one of my favorites. And anybody who's listened to me knows I always talk about how what we're feeling, the emotions that we have, they have answers for us. They have wisdom for us. If we don't listen, if we don't process what's going on, become aware and process, it just locks in and then keeps us on that
Yeah.
loop. So what you're saying is actually one of my favorite things to do, to first just be aware, what am I
Mm-hmm.
feeling? And then be willing to take that next step, like, okay, what is this? What is this anger? What is this resentment? And excuse me, and getting into that with our own unique inner wisdom will let us know. It's like, oh, okay, I'm overgiving. Oh, when I am around these people, all they want to do is fight and bicker, and it's energy sucking to me. Whatever it is, maybe there's boundaries to set or a redirection. But I agree with you. I think that is the absolute first place to start is what am I feeling and what information do these feelings have for me?
Right, because I mean, your body carries like every no you didn't say, every boundary you didn't keep, like, and every thing you didn't express, right? And it can
Yep.
show up in different
Yep.
ways. And so I know that you do a program about, health consciousness and weight that can be a protection about it could be about anything. It could be about safety, it could be about not having enough, not being enough, not feeling right. It could be, as you know, many, many things. But
Yep.
one of the exercises for me that I teach is just like, let's just place our hands over our heart, like take a deep breath, allow yourself to be, connecting your mind, your body, and connecting with your inner guidance, your clarity. Like, what does your body want to say? Like, just asking that question to yourself feels a little weird, but are we checking in with our body? Because our body knows before our minds.
Actually, I just took myself through as you said it, and I just got this sense of relaxation. It just everything calms down, and I do think that it's trying. They're trying. Our body is trying to get our attention,
Mm-hmm.
right? So these emotions, everything that that we've stuffed down, it's trying to get our attention. It's trying to say, "Hey, I don't like it when we don't put up a boundary here because we're not taking care of ourselves. We're
Mm-hmm.
allowing ourselves to be whatever, utilized, taken advantage of, whatever it is. It comes down to us not taking care of ourselves, and then it really is who the we can think that the anger is directed outward, but really those people are just showing
Yeah.
us. They're just showing us what we need to learn about ourselves, where we're not standing up for ourselves or moving with our soul's desires, moving with somebody else's. It's like all those things and people that trigger us. They didn't put the wound there. They're showing us where we are compromising ourselves or not honoring ourselves. So there's great information there. And I love when you do that because it just brings you right back in. That's very powerful. I love that.
Yeah, it is. It's a great exercise. But I think when I look at some people whether I know or clients, it's more about like, are they caught up in the doing mode because they believe their self-worth is tied to it,
Mm,
like how much they can
yeah,
accomplish. I think that's a big
yeah.
one.
Yeah, I think that's a big one. I think it's a big one in our society. We are programmed to do and achieve, and then we get our story that that's our value, that's our worth,
Yeah.
which is not aligned with our soul, which will bring us into at some point a forced pause
Yeah.
because we're going against our path.
And the forced pause can realign you, right? I mean, it's along with a lot of other
Yep.
wellness practices. I mean, we just had a Reiki sound bath experience, and it's a reset, it's a rejuvenation. That's what I call it because, you know, when we shift out of being mode, when we shift out of doing mode and into being mode, we remember our presence, right? We connect with our energy, we align with who we are. That's where the real magic is. It's in the quiet moments.
Absolutely. And I think that when we do practices like that, when we do practices like going to see you for a Reiki session or have a Reiki session online, when we go to sound baths, when we make that part of our daily practice and monthly practice, I think that we don't oftentimes need to have a forced pause. The
Mm-hmm.
times in my life and the times that I've seen my clients that are in a forced pause is usually when those moments aren't being taken. It is more about doing and letting that be tied into your worth and other things. And that forced pause is almost like, okay, you can't do anymore.
Right.
You're going to have an injury, you're going to have a sickness, you're going to have something. So you actually can't do. Because doing, as you know, is part of bringing in what we want to bring in. But when it's doing from a place of just going and being busy and filling up our plate, we're in avoidance. There's doing from inspired
Yeah.
action, doing in alignment with our soul's purpose and our goals and our intentions. And then there's doing to be busy, tie into our worth, avoid the stillness. And that's when I think that the forced pauses come because
Nice.
we're going to make it so that universe and your higher self are conspiring and saying, yeah, we're going to take a break from doing, we're just going to
Yeah.
be, and it can
Even
be challenging.
100%. Even if it's not like forced pause, even if you just say, okay, hold on, I just need to pause, reflect, check in with myself, right? I
Yeah.
think there's three things you can do when you're willing to like when you get to that point. It's like set a boundary, right? Like reset, say no, and ignore the critics. Like there are no mistakes, right? There's just different choices. Like we have to do what's right for our body, our time, our place. Like there's always gonna be someone who's not gonna like see your self-worth, but don't let it be you, right?
Right. I love that. And I think that going back to what you were just saying earlier, if you are aware and recognize the signs
Mm-hmm.
that you're overgiving, which goes back to what we were talking about in the very beginning, you can probably or possibly avoid the forced pause because you're willing to take it. When you notice that you are exhausted for
Yeah.
seemingly no reason, when you notice that you're not motivated, when you notice that you're feeling relief when your schedule gets cleared, it's like those can be signs to say, you know what, I'm just going to give myself permission to take a minute, to take a day, and not care what anybody else says, and usually don't even share it because someone's like, wait, you didn't do anything today? I mean, there are those people who are like, what do you mean you did nothing? So just following the rhythm of
Of
your
your own.
own
Mm-hmm.
drum and being willing to say, you know what, I'm just going to watch
Yeah.
Netflix all day, or I'm just going to sit here and meditate just because I feel like meditating with nothing to do.
Right. Like what nourishes your spirit? Maybe it's meditating, maybe it's breath work, maybe it's just being in nature or feeling the sun on your skin, like getting hydrated. You know, maybe it is watching TV that
Binging.
can take you out of your life so you stop thinking, right?
Yep.
Because that's like giving becomes effortlessly when you are reset, right? But I always say to whoever I'm talking to who's feeling this is like reconnect to your joy. Like let's just do it right here, right now. Like what lights you up?
Yep.
Like without an agenda. Like because I think agendas steal our magic, right?
Yep.
And we can miss the miracles when we're on the agenda, right? If we just feel the joy, seek out the joy, and find one thing that brings us joy, and then commit to doing that, it can just take that fuel to top you up.
Yeah. And so oftentimes, I think when we're in our doing, what we're trying to accomplish is actually just that. We're trying to accomplish a feeling of joy, a feeling of empowerment, a feeling of peace, a feeling of abundance. We're trying to go for that feeling, which oftentimes is so simple. As you said, to what brings me joy. You know, I get joy walking my dogs by the lake. So sometimes there's just those simple little things that's really what we're trying to accomplish anyway. Not saying not to do our intentions and our accomplishments, I'm not saying that at all, but in those moments when we're not finding the joy, the empowerment, the satisfaction, the being lit up, it's like maybe it's a moment that we have to shift away and just go back to something simple, whatever that simple is, to find the peace, the joy, that feeling, and
Yeah.
allow ourselves in maybe the universe to reset.
Yeah. Yeah. Just envisioning how you want to feel and then choosing from that space, that energy.
Yep.
Because you're worthy of rest, joy, ease,
Yep.
right?
Which
That's like
ties
that.
us into what we were talking about, I think it was last week, internal desires versus external desires.
Yeah.
How you feel. How do you want to feel? That's the root of everything that brings us feeling, that everything that brings us that feeling of joy and empowerment. How do you want to feel? And start from there. I love that.
Yeah. It would be really fun if somebody or if anybody felt inspired to drop in the comments like one way that will top you up today. Like because we can all learn from each other.
Yep.
Like, oh, I
Yeah.
never tried that. I'm going to try that. Like, so yeah, feel free to drop in a comment, anyone who's listening or listens in the future, because we definitely will see it. But
Absolutely.
I think making a difference takes time, right? It takes commitment because it takes practice. We all grow in different directions, but the idea is to keep our roots strong.
Yeah. And we're used to what we're used to, right? Meaning, if we are used to burning out, if we are used to giving not from overflow, but from depletion, we will loop into that. We will continually loop into it. It takes that practice of saying, okay, today I'm going to move in and see what brings me joy. Today I'm going to do something just for me. Today I'm not going to care. And then that can open us up to integrating more and more of that into our life. But it is breaking the cycles and the routines that we're ensconced in.
Yeah, I mean, exhaustion can make you miserable. It can create tension,
Yeah.
right? But everything can change when we choose it. Every moment we're at a new moment to make a new choice. But
Yeah.
that's what I would say is anything is possible. But the question is, will you choose it?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. That's what it comes down to. And as we've talked about before, choosing you first is actually also choosing everybody else. When you choose for yourself first, you have more to give. You are shining your light brighter. You're giving others permission to do the same. It
Mhm.
really is what it's the opposite of what many of us are programmed for, especially women, I think. But it's choosing you first is actually choosing everybody else as well. It's better.
Very true. And I always say self-care is how you take your power back.
Yeah.
So until next time, stay grounded, stay inspired, keep rising.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.